The crimson light of the Xylar sun bled across the polished obsidian floor of the Grand Conclave, reflecting in the multifaceted eyes of the assembled Vorn. A low, guttural hum vibrated through the chamber, a collective expression of unease that resonated deep within the chitinous exoskeletons of the assembled dignitaries. Above, the holographic projection of the approaching vessels flickered, a swarm of unfamiliar geometries blotting out the celestial tapestry of the Andromedan expanse. It had been weeks since the first, anomalous readings had registered, weeks since the initial probes had vanished without a trace, and now the culmination of their anxieties was upon them. The ships of a design utterly unknown were closing. They were human. The High Matriarch Xylar, her mandibles twitching with a mixture of suppressed dread and cold calculation, addressed the chamber. Her voice, a resonating baritone that commanded the respect of the entire Vorn collective, cut through the nervous hum. The situation, as you all observe, has escalated. The humans are now within visual range. The initial projections have proven accurate. Their fleet, however, is far more substantial than anticipated. A ripple of unease spread through the assembly. The Vorn, masters of the spiral arm, had encountered countless civilizations in their millennia of existence, subduing them with a combination of technological superiority and ruthless efficiency. They had faced and conquered empires that spanned galaxies, but these newcomers, these humans, were different. They were an enigma, a puzzle wrapped in a riddle, and now they were at their doorstep. Ambassador Xylar, a veteran of countless diplomatic campaigns, his multiple eyes constantly scanning the expressions of the council members, cautiously spoke. "High Matriarch, with all due respect, perhaps we are overreacting. We possess the technological advantage. Our weapon systems, our shields, our understanding of the fundamental forces of the universe are unparalleled. Surely we can simply deter them." He paused, allowing his words to hang in the air, weighted with the unspoken arrogance of a species that had never known defeat. Several of the counselors nodded, their exoskeletons clicking in agreement, a ritualistic gesture of assent. Deterrence was the Vorn way. Subjugation was their language. But the High Matriarch remained impassive, her gaze fixed on the approaching armada. "Deterrence is a strategy that relies on predictable behavior, Ambassador. We know little of these humans. We do not understand their motivations. Their silence, their utter lack of communication, is itself a cause for concern. What if they do not understand deterrence? What if they are immune to it?" A hush fell over the chamber. The implications were chilling. The Vorn had built their empire on fear, on the threat of overwhelming force. What if that threat was meaningless against these humans? The holographic projection shifted, displaying a close-up of the human vessels. They were sleek, elegant, almost organic in their design, a stark contrast to the angular, militaristic ships of the Vorn. Their hulls seemed to absorb the light, making them appear to be floating shadows against the backdrop of the stars. Sensor readings indicated powerful energy signatures, but the specific nature of their weaponry remained unknown. Their shields, if they possessed them, were invisible to the Vorn's advanced scanners, a disconcerting fact. Senator Xylar, a young and ambitious Vorn known for his hawkish views, seized the opportunity to inject his voice into the debate. "Perhaps, High Matriarch, we are being too cautious. These primitives have stumbled upon our territory. They must be taught a lesson. A swift, decisive strike would be prudent. It would discourage any further incursions." His words were met with a mix of approval and apprehension. The younger generation of Vorn, raised in an era of unchallenged dominance, favored a more aggressive approach. They saw the humans as an annoyance, an obstacle to be swept aside. High Matriarch turned her gaze upon Senator Xylar, her multiple eyes holding his gaze with an intensity that made the young senator slightly uncomfortable. "Prudence, Senator, is not synonymous with timidity, but neither is recklessness. We do not know what these humans are capable of. We cannot risk a miscalculation. Our empire is too valuable to risk." Her words were firm, but the underlying tremor of anxiety was barely perceptible. The Vorn had conquered worlds with ease, yes. But they had never faced a foe quite like this. Days bled into weeks, filled with endless debate, strategic analysis, and the agonizing anticipation of first contact. The human fleet remained stationary, a silent, implacable presence in the void, blocking major transit routes. They transmitted no signals, offered no greetings, made no hostile gestures. They simply were, a constant reminder of the unknown that loomed at the edge of the Vorn Empire. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a single, flickering signal emerged from the leading human vessel. It was a communication, a greeting, a tentative step towards something. The Grand Conclave was immediately convened. The High Matriarch, her exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial light, addressed the assembled council. The humans have initiated contact. This changes everything. We must proceed with extreme caution. We do not know their intentions. We must be prepared for anything. The message was translated and projected onto the central screen. A series of images and symbols, accompanied by a repeating audio track of rhythmic pulses. The visuals were initially baffling: complex geometric patterns, images of a blue planet teeming with life, and sequences of rapidly changing symbols. The audio, however, offered a more direct point of entry, a series of harmonic frequencies, a musical score of sorts. It felt welcoming. Ambassador Zyler, ever the pragmatist, was the first to speak. It is unconventional, but it is communication nonetheless. Perhaps this is a sign of goodwill. We should respond. A gesture of reciprocation might be beneficial. After a brief, tense discussion, the council agreed. The Vorn, with their vast knowledge of galactic diplomacy, understood the importance of first impressions. A carefully crafted response was prepared, a combination of visual representations of Vorn history, technological achievements, and philosophical treatises, accompanied by a symphony of harmonic tones, designed to mimic the human signal. The response was transmitted, and then they waited. Hours passed. The human fleet remained silent, its position unchanged. The Vorn could only speculate, filled with dread and hope, as they considered whether their efforts had achieved anything. Had they failed to convey their message? Were the humans simply indifferent? Then the response came. A single unified beam of energy directed at the Grand Conclave's primary communication array. It was not a weapon. It was not an attack. It was a transmission. The Vorn's advanced scanners immediately began to decode the incoming data stream, a torrent of information that poured into their systems. It was a language, a complex code of symbols, equations, and images, but one that contained an unexpected element of clarity. The initial translation was slow, laborious, but the implications were staggering. The humans were not a monolithic entity. They were a collection of nations, each with its own history, culture, and ideologies. But they were united, it seemed, under a single banner, a governing body that acted in concert. They possessed a deep understanding of mathematics, physics, and engineering, far exceeding the initial projections. Their technology was not necessarily superior to the Vorn's, but it was different. It possessed an elegance, a simplicity, that the Vorn, with their emphasis on brute force and incremental advancement, had never conceived. But it was the humans' approach to their new neighbors that stood out most. They were communicating with the Vorn. They were not attempting to conquer them. They were offering assistance, a trade of knowledge, an alliance for mutual benefit. The Grand Conclave was stunned. The Vorn had faced countless civilizations. They had seen arrogance, fear, greed, and barbarity. But they had never encountered a civilization that offered collaboration, assistance, and goodwill. The High Matriarch, her multiple eyes widening, could not fathom the situation. She authorized a full-scale analysis of the human message, enlisting the most brilliant minds of the Vorn Empire to decipher its full meaning. They delved deep into the human data stream, studying their philosophy, their art, their history. They learned of their wars, their triumphs, their failures. They saw their capacity for both great cruelty and breathtaking compassion. And most importantly, they saw the underlying structure of their society, their decision-making processes, their ethics. Slowly, carefully, a picture began to emerge. The humans were not driven by conquest or domination. They were driven by exploration, by curiosity, by a desire to understand the universe and their place within it. They valued knowledge, reason, and cooperation. They were, in the Vorn's own terms, a civilized species. The implications were earth-shattering. The Vorn, so used to facing aggressive and territorial neighbors, had found something unexpected. The High Matriarch called another meeting of the Grand Conclave, a somber but hopeful gathering. She looked at her assembled council. The humans have extended an offer of collaboration. They have revealed their philosophy, their knowledge. They offer an alliance. The assembled Vorn, still processing the information, responded with a low hum. It was not anger or defiance, but confusion. Senator Zyler, ever wary of weakness, voiced his concern. High Matriarch, we must consider the potential pitfalls of such an alliance. We know little of the humans. They could be deceitful. The High Matriarch turned her gaze to him. And what is your proposal, Senator? Do you suggest we initiate a war, a conflict we do not fully understand? While they remain at the edge of our territories, a war of attrition would cripple our ability to conduct space travel. We risk everything when we are already in crisis, and the humans have made it clear that they wish to help us. A tense silence fell over the room. The implications of this new development were staggering. It was not the humans' technological capabilities that were the most astounding. It was their understanding of ethics, of diplomacy, of how to work with others for a mutual purpose. The Vorn, so accustomed to conflict, were facing a situation that defied their ingrained instincts. Ambassador Zyler spoke, his voice measured. "High Matriarch, I believe we must accept their offer. We can learn from them, share knowledge, and together, we can become stronger. We can explore new frontiers, discover new technologies, and most importantly, avoid unnecessary conflict." The High Matriarch listened to the council, weighing the arguments. The Vorn Empire had stood for millennia, built on strength, on might. This new reality demanded a different approach. The humans were offering not just an alliance, but a partnership. After careful consideration and discussion, the council reached a decision. The Vorn would accept the humans' offer. They would begin a new era of diplomacy, cooperation, and understanding. The human response was swift and emphatic. The fleet, previously a silent sentinel, became a beacon of interstellar cooperation. The ships began to move, but not in a threatening fashion. They moved to escort Vorn vessels. The ships of both species began traveling, sharing knowledge, and helping each other. The Vorn, after centuries of galactic isolation, suddenly found themselves a part of something larger. They opened trade routes with the human nations. They shared technology and knowledge. The humans, in turn, learned from the Vorn. They admired their resourcefulness, their vast experience, and their unique understanding of the cosmos. However, the alliance was not without its challenges. The Vorn were wary of the humans' rapid technological advances. They questioned their ethical standards, their insistence on nonviolent solutions. But as time went on, the doubts faded. The Vorn learned to trust the humans, to admire their unwavering commitment to peace, their sense of honor, and their unfailing logic. The humans, in turn, began to understand the Vorn's history, their culture, their struggles. They appreciated their wisdom, their tenacity, and their capacity for empathy. The alliance flourished. The Vorn Empire, once isolated and wary, became a vibrant member of the human-led galactic community. New technologies emerged, new worlds were explored. The two civilizations grew together, learning from each other, building a future together. But the peace would not last, for as they continued to explore, they began to detect something. One day, deep within the remote reaches of the Andromeda Galaxy, the Vorn scientific team, using cutting-edge technology and human assistance, discovered a strange artifact. It was a massive, ancient structure, a colossal ring of unknown origin, shrouded in the darkness of space. It pulsed with an alien energy, emanating a powerful signal that predated the Vorn themselves. The humans, their technological prowess unparalleled, immediately recognized the implications of the discovery. They had seen ancient signals before, whispers from a time before known civilizations. This signal was unlike anything they had ever encountered, something beyond their understanding. The discovery sparked a new sense of urgency. The Vorn and the humans pooled their resources, dedicating all their capabilities to the mystery. Together, they pored over the data, the signals, the readings. With shared diligence, they worked to decipher the artifact's purpose. The weeks that followed were filled with sleepless nights, intense research, and heated debates. The humans, their minds working at warp speed, made the most significant discoveries. They found that the structure was not just a relic of the past, but an active device, a gateway of some sort, emitting a powerful signal. And that signal, they found, was a warning. The High Matriarch, along with representatives from the human delegation, met in the Grand Conclave. The atmosphere was somber, but there was a sense of resolve. The humans, their faces grim but composed, described the discovery. "The signal is a message," the human representative, a woman named Dr. Anya Sharma, spoke. Her tone was serious and calm, but there was a note of unease in her voice. "A warning from a civilization that disappeared long ago. They called themselves the progenitors." The Vorn counselors listened intently. The progenitors, a name whispered in legends, a civilization that supposedly built the first interstellar network. "They faced a threat," Dr. Sharma continued, "a cosmic entity, a force that consumes entire galaxies, and they were defeated. The signal is a message, a warning, a cry for help." The council was shocked. The implications were staggering. They were not alone in the universe, and whatever the progenitors had warned about was approaching. "They built this structure to send the message," Dr. Sharma said, "to warn those who would come after, to prepare us. She paused, her gaze sweeping the assembly. The entity is out there, and it is coming. The screen shifted, showing a holographic rendering of the entity. It was not a physical being, but a distortion of space-time, a cosmic predator that devoured stars, planets, and entire galaxies. The Vorn and humans knew then that they had to prepare. The progenitors, despite their advanced technology, had been unable to stop it. They did not know how to stop the threat. The Grand Conclave was in chaos. The Vorn had faced countless enemies, but this was different. This was a force of nature, a cosmic horror that transcended any conventional understanding of warfare. Many feared the humans. They began to question the alliance. What if the humans, with their technology, were simply incapable of stopping this threat? What if the Vorn were doomed? Senator Zeiler, ever the pragmatist, saw the opportunity to gain power. He spoke loudly. The humans are clearly outmatched. They may have the will, the technology, but they have no way of defeating this entity. We must prepare to protect ourselves. We must focus on our own survival. The High Matriarch turned her multiple eyes on him, her expression a mask of disappointment. And abandon our allies, abandon our principles, abandon the very values that have made us stronger. We must be realistic, High Matriarch. And what is your proposal, Senator? We build a great wall, we build a fleet, we hide. Dr. Sharma spoke. Your way of thinking is self-destructive. Retreating means certain death. The entity will find you. If the progenitors, with all their power, could not stop it, the only chance is to work together, to fight together. How can we trust that you know how to stop it? Senator Zeiler demanded. You are the ones who brought this threat into our space. A low, guttural hum filled the Grand Conclave, the murmur of uncertainty, fear, and doubt that permeated the Vorn. Dr. Sharma stood tall, her voice calm and firm. We don't know, but we know more than we did. We're working. The humans do have knowledge of the entity, and we are here to help. The humans and the Vorn spent months preparing for the looming catastrophe. The humans, utilizing their vast knowledge of theoretical physics and engineering, designed new weapons and defensive systems. They shared their expertise with the Vorn, who in turn brought their own unique strengths to the table. The alliance was tested. There were doubts, tensions, arguments, but ultimately they persevered. They knew that their only hope was to stand together, united against a common enemy. When the entity finally arrived, it was as terrifying as the humans had predicted. A swirling vortex of cosmic energy, it consumed everything in its path. It tore through space, devouring stars and planets in its relentless advance. The Vorn and human fleets stood ready, their ships forming a defensive line at the edge of the galaxy, the culmination of their combined efforts. The battle was unlike anything either civilization had ever experienced. The entity was not a single being, but an amorphous wave of destruction, a force of nature that defied conventional understanding. The human and Vorn ships fired their weapons, but their attacks seemed to have little effect. Shields flickered and failed. Ships exploded into dust. The entity's power was seemingly limitless. But the humans and the Vorn did not falter. They fought with courage, with ingenuity, with the unwavering belief that they could prevail. The humans, with their advanced technology, developed new strategies. They used their understanding of quantum mechanics and gravitational forces to attempt to disrupt the entity's progress. The Vorn, with their vast experience in interstellar warfare, provided crucial support and tactical guidance. In the midst of the battle, Dr. Sharma, along with a team of human and Vorn scientists, made a breakthrough. They realized that the entity was not simply consuming matter, but was also disrupting the fabric of space-time, creating a localized anomaly that could potentially be exploited. They developed a plan, a desperate gambit that could potentially buy them time. The plan involved a coordinated attack, a suicide run to get near the entity. Human ships, using experimental technology, would create a concentrated energy field, a disruption that might give the entity pause. The High Matriarch, faced with a desperate decision, convened the Grand Conclave. The room was filled with fear, but also with a quiet determination. She turned her gaze to Dr. Sharma. Is this plan viable? Dr. Sharma paused, her expression somber. It's our best chance. It will be incredibly dangerous. We will be sacrificing everything, at least temporarily. The High Matriarch turned her gaze to the assembled council. We have faced challenges before. We have overcome adversity. We cannot surrender. We must fight. The council was silent. They were not afraid. They had forged a new bond. They nodded in unison, their exoskeletons clicking. A small, specially equipped human fleet launched the desperate maneuver. They traveled towards the entity, their vessels like fireflies in the storm. The Vorn fleet, alongside them, gave cover. The first human ships closed in on the entity and released their energy, creating a concentrated disruption field. The effect was immediate. The entity paused. The Vorn ships, seizing the opportunity, unleashed everything they had. They poured all their remaining firepower on the entity. It was not enough to destroy the creature, but it was enough to slow its advance, to give the others a chance. The humans, using the fleeting moment of disruption, launched the second phase of their plan. They focused on their technological expertise, directing all their energy to the ancient structure. With all of their combined power, they initiated the final stage. The structure, dormant for millennia, came to life. It pulsed with an energy that could be felt across the galaxy. The entity paused again. It could not understand. It began to fight, but it was too late. The structure began to emit a powerful beam of energy, a cascade of light and sound. It was the same sound the humans had heard, the one warning. It changed from a cry for help to a way of fighting the enemy. The entity recoiled. The disruption caused it to become vulnerable to the weapon. It faltered. It weakened. The beam of energy began to eat at the entity, unraveling it, dismantling it. The humans and the Vorn, their ships battered and broken, watched with a mixture of awe and exhaustion. The battle was not over, but the tide had turned. With each passing moment, the energy from the structure grew stronger. The entity, its form dissolving, began to retreat. Finally, with a final, echoing scream, it vanished, leaving behind nothing but the remnants of its destruction. The human and Vorn fleets, their ships shattered but their spirits unbroken, limped back to their home systems. They had faced a cosmic horror, a threat that had wiped out entire galaxies, and they had prevailed. But the victory came at a cost. Many ships were gone, many lives were lost, but they had saved the galaxy, and they had done it together. The Grand Conclave convened once more. The chamber was filled with a sense of relief, gratitude, and a new sense of purpose. The High Matriarch, her multiple eyes filled with tears, looked at Dr. Sharma. "We are forever indebted to your people. You have saved us all." Dr. Sharma shook her head. "We saved ourselves together, we learned from each other, we built a new alliance, and now we understand what we are capable of." Ambassador Xyler spoke, his voice filled with emotion. "We may have been conquered once with ease, but we will not be conquered again. We are now a part of something larger, a galactic family working toward a shared destiny, and we will not be afraid to face the unknown." As the Grand Conclave adjourned, the humans and the Vorn set about the enormous task of rebuilding. They repaired their ships, reconstructed their cities, and mourned their dead. But even in their grief, they found a sense of hope. The alliance was stronger than ever. The humans and the Vorn, bound together by their shared experience, had forged a bond that would last for millennia. But the final twist was yet to come. As the Vorn and human scientific teams worked to repair the ancient structure, they made a new discovery, a deeper understanding of its purpose. They found that it was not merely a warning system or a weapon, but a key. The entity was not the only threat. It was a symptom of a larger problem. The progenitors, in their final moments, had realized that the universe was not infinite. It was shrinking. The entity was the result of a collapsing cosmos, a force driven by the slow, inexorable decay of the universe itself. And the ancient structure, they found, was not designed to defeat the entity. It was designed to do something far more profound. It was designed to escape. The humans and the Vorn looked at one another, their expressions filled with a mixture of wonder and dread. The next frontier had arrived. Their survival depended on it. Their understanding of physics would allow them to leave their galaxy behind and travel to the next. The work was long and hard, but the two species went to work, side by side. They conquered worlds with ease until they were stopped by the stars.